everyone, welcome back to Actual English. I'm Jennifer Clyde. It's time for lesson 253 and today's topic is drunk driving. Drunk driving is what? It's driving under the influence of alcohol. It's something we should never do because not only are we putting our lives at risk, we're putting other people's lives at risk as well. It's a very dangerous thing to do. Some people, they lose judgment. If they have a bit too much to drink, they somehow believe or think that they can drive. But nope, if you are under the influence of alcohol, we all know that people cannot think straight. That's why we often make mistakes after we have a few drinks or one too many drinks. Anyhow, today's topic is drunk driving once again. Let's begin with actual talk.
I was driving by the Hyatt the other night near Namsan, and I came across this line of policemen, and all the cars had to stop, and you had to blow in a breathalyzer. I'd never seen that before. You drive here, right?
Right.
What's the limits? What are the laws regarding drinking and driving?
You know, I'm not absolutely sure. I think the limit is around, is it 0.05? I think it might be even lower than that.
Okay.
But it's extremely low.
So lower than America. Is it lower than England as well?
I'm not sure, but despite the levels, I think the enforcement is the factor, and it seems to be a little bit more flexible than perhaps back home.
Yeah, I feel like in America, you're allowed to have one or two drinks depending on your size and age and man or woman.
Right.
Your tolerance, it's 0.08, which is about 2 drinks for a guy, maybe 1.5 for a woman.
And that's for your state, isn't it? Because it'll be different in different
right,
states.
It varies depending on state, exactly. So I think here it's lower, but I don't see this fear in people. Like, I see people sometimes getting in cars and their friends aren't really saying anything.
Right.
And they're just kind of, okay, see you later, be safe. But where I'm from, if you see someone, the friends are always like, are you okay? Are you sure you're okay?
Well, it's true. I heard there's an actual application now you can get for your mobile phone, which tells you where the checkpoints are. Which is
no way
in Korea, but I don't know. There is sort of a culture of entertainment and eating and drinking too here,
right?
And I do like the system they have where you can call a service up and they come and drive your car
for
home.
you,
right?
Yes,
which is
that's
fantastic.
amazing.
Which is fantastic.
I love that.
Yeah.
There's really no excuse when you have that available to you. There's really no excuse to be drinking and driving.
I absolutely agree with you.
Okay, welcome back everyone. Hope you had a very careful listen to the conversation. We had Eugene and Mary helping us out. Eugene has mentioned something about how he was driving past a certain location or he was driving in a neighborhood and he saw a line of policemen doing something. Let's check out what that was. Here we go. Now, Mary says, Mary says, I was driving by the Hyatt Hotel the other night near Namsan and I came across this line of policemen and all the cars had to stop and had to blow in a breathalyzer. So we've got some words to check right here. So the point is she was driving by a hotel the other night near Namsan and she came across. If you come across something, you are saying that you encounter something or discover something. Find something by chance, unexpectedly. So if you were not expecting to see something or find something and you're walking by or driving by and you see something, okay, that's coming across something. So she by chance came across or found or saw line of policemen, a whole bunch of policemen. What was happening? All the cars had to stop. And what? They had to blow in a breathalyzer. Now, this is a brand of a breath analyzer. Okay, it's called a breath analyzer, but a breathalyzer used so commonly that it's just called a breathalyzer, although it's a brand. So what is a breathalyzer? Think of breath analyzer, breath analyzer. breathalyzer. Now, this is a device used especially by policemen to determine or to check how much alcohol you have in your body. Well, they do this by checking your breath. So you need to blow into this small device, and what the device does is it determines how much alcohol you have consumed, or how much alcohol, well, it can determine, or it actually... It tells how much you drank. I don't know how accurate this is, but you've seen that. Policemen stopping cars, they ask you to blow into something harder, 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 more, 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 more. They do that, right? So you are blowing into a breathalyzer. So this usually happens, especially when they suspect someone has, had a lot to drink or is under the influence of alcohol. So she saw that, and she says, I had never seen that before. And she says, you drive here, right? Eugene, of course, says, yes, right. Now she asks, what are the limits? She said, what's the limits? Grammatically, it should have been, what are the limits? Well, but she said, what's the limits? What are the laws regarding drinking and driving? Drinking and driving. Drunk driving, in other words. Eugene says, I'm not absolutely sure. I think the limit is around, roughly, 0.05, 0.05, okay? I believe that is correct. It might be even lower than that, but it's extremely low. It's very, very low, he says. Yes, this is a way of, I guess, calculating or seeing how much alcohol you have in your system, perhaps. I may be wrong, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe at that percentage rate, 0.05, I believe you do have to pay a fine, around 1,000,000 won, I do believe, and you will have your driver's license temporarily suspended, which means you cannot drive for a certain time period. If it's a 1.0, yes, that's higher. This is when you get your license revoked. Cancelled, in other words. Okay, you get your license taken away from you. Okay, 0.10, that is. Anyhow, he says, I think it's around 0.05, maybe even lower than that. Now, Mary says, so lower than America, meaning lower than it is in America. Is it lower than England as well, she asks. Now, Eugene says, I'm not sure, but despite the levels, in spite of the levels, I think the enforcement, that is another vocab word, the enforcement seems to be a little bit more flexible than perhaps back home. If you say enforcement, we're talking about the implementation of rules, how you are supposed to abide by the law or certain rules, implementation of rules. He says it's a little bit more flexible. What does flexible mean? A person can be flexible. Say, for example, a baby that is 2 years old is much more flexible than an adult that is maybe 60 years old, of course, because our bones, they get stiff as we age, but babies' bones, they're so flexible. They bend easily, right? But here, if you say that something such as a system, okay, is flexible, you're saying that it can be changed, can be modified. It's adaptable, okay? So he's saying, I'm not sure about the levels, but I think the enforcement seems to be a little bit more flexible in Korea than perhaps back home. He's talking about how it is in the UK and England. Now, Mary says, yeah, I feel like in America, you're allowed to have 1 or 2 drinks, depending on your size and age. Okay, and man or woman. And then she says your tolerance. So this is what it is like in the States. She says it depends on the situation. It depends on who you are. It depends on how old you are, how big you are, how small you are, whether you're a man or a woman. And she also says, yeah, it also depends on your tolerance. What is tolerance? It's the ability to endure something, to bear something. But When it comes to alcohol tolerance, we're talking about being able to absorb, I guess, alcohol. Some people have a high tolerance when it comes to alcohol, which means they can drink well. If you have a low tolerance, it means you cannot really drink well. You tend to get drunk very easily. Okay, so if you cannot deal with alcohol, you most likely would say that you have a low tolerance for alcohol. So basically, once again, we're talking about low or high tolerance, the ability to break down alcohol. That's easier, to break down alcohol. So it all depends on this in the States. And then she says, oh, it's 0.08, which is about 2 drinks for a guy, maybe 1.5 drinks for a woman. Okay, so obviously, I guess men can break down more alcohol than women in most cases, I believe so. Moving on, Eugene says, and that's for your state, where you are from, the state you are from, isn't it? It'll be different in different states. That's right. Laws and rules are different depending on each and every state in the US. So he is right about that. He's saying, okay, so 0.08, maybe it's 2 drinks for men, 1 or 1.5 drinks for women. Maybe it depends on age, size, whether you're a male or a female in your state where you are from. But he's saying, I'm sure it's different in different states as well. Now, Mary says, yes, it varies. It's different. It varies depending on state. So I think here it's lower. In Korea, it's lower. But I don't see this fear in people. What does this mean? I don't see this fear in people. If you see fear in somebody, you're saying that that person looks fearful, frightened, scared. I see happiness in you, which means you look very happy. Here she says, I don't see fear in people, meaning people don't look like they are fearful. They don't look like they're afraid to get caught, perhaps, drunk driving. That's what she is saying. She says, I see people sometimes getting in cars or hopping in cars, and their friends aren't really saying anything. They're just kind of, okay, see you later, be safe. That's what they tend to say. But where I'm from, let's say, in America, where she is from her state, the friends are always like, are you okay? Are you sure you're okay? To me, these questions are pretty much the same. They're very similar, but what she is saying is it looks as though, people in America or from her state seem to be a bit more concerned about their friends driving under the influence of alcohol. But it's a bit more natural or common in Korea. I think that is what she is implying. Eugene says, I heard there's an application. We're talking about a smartphone app. An application now you can get for your mobile phone, which tells you where the checkpoints are in Korea. I did not know this. Is this true? I don't know if this is legal, but basically a checkpoint is a place along roads or even borders where there are policemen or even soldiers, and they stop travelers. They stop them for inspection to see who they are. But of course, checkpoints, we're talking about checkpoints where there are lines of policemen checking to see if the drivers have been drinking and driving. Okay, so he's talking about these applications that tell you if there are police, if there are checkpoints checking to see if drivers are driving under the influence of alcohol. Now, it's hard for her to believe, so she says, no way, really? And Eugene says, but I don't know. I mean, there is a culture of entertainment. There's a culture of eating and drinking too. Okay, here in Korea, of course. And I do like the system they have where you can call a service up and they come and drive your car back home. We're talking about what we all know as 대리운전, right? And this is a service where we call a certain number tell them where we are. So we call them, give them our location, and what they'll do is send a driver over to where you are, and they will make sure you get in the car, and they will drive your car to your destination safely, just to make sure you get home or anywhere else safely. So he's talking about that service. But here's a pattern: call a service up. You can also say call up a service, meaning to telephone, okay? To call, dial a number, to call a service. And then Mary says, drive your car for you. Yes, that's amazing. It really is an amazing service, I think. And then she says, I love that. When you have that available to you, there's really no excuse to be drinking and driving. Now, when you say there's no excuse, you're saying there is no acceptable explanation. There's no reason why you should fail to do something. So she's saying, if you have that, if you have that service that's so fantastic and amazing, there's no excuse for people to drink and drive. Why should people drink and drive? So that is what she is saying. Okay, we'll take a look at these patterns and vocab words more in detail in just a bit. But for now, let's take a listen to the actual talk conversation one more time.
I was driving by the Hyatt the other night near Namsan.
Yeah.
And I came across this line of policemen, and all the cars had to stop, and you had to blow in a breathalyzer. I'd never seen that before. You drive here, right?
Right.
What's the limits? What are the laws regarding drinking and driving?
I'm not absolutely sure. I think the limit is around, is it 0.05? I think it might be even lower than that.
Okay.
But it's extremely low.
So lower than America. Is it lower than England as well?
I'm not sure, but despite the levels, I think the enforcement is the factor, and it seems to be a little bit more flexible than perhaps back home.
Yeah, I feel like in America, you're allowed to have 1 or 2 drinks depending on your size and age and man or woman.
Right.
Your tolerance, it's 0.08, which is about 2 drinks for a guy, maybe 1.5 for a woman.
And that's for your state, isn't it? Because it'll be different in different
right,
states.
It varies depending on state, exactly. So I think here it's lower, but I don't see this fear in people. Like, I see people sometimes getting in cars and their friends aren't really saying anything.
Right.
And they're just kind of, okay, see you later, be safe. But where I'm from, if you see someone, the friends are always like, are you okay? Are you sure you're okay?
Well, it's true. I heard there's an actual application now you can get for your mobile phone, which tells you where the checkpoints are. Which is
no way
in Korea, but I don't know. There is sort of a culture of entertainment and eating and drinking too here,
right?
And I do like the system they have, where you can call a service up and they come and drive your car
for
home.
you,
right?
Yes,
which is
that's
fantastic.
amazing.
Which is fantastic.
I love that.
Yeah.
There's really no excuse when you have that available to you. There's really no excuse to be drinking and driving.
I absolutely agree with you.
Welcome back, everyone. It's time for actual expressions. Okay, let's take a look at some words from today's actual talk conversation. We had breathalyzer. Okay, this is a brand of a breath analyzer, which is a device that police use to determine how much alcohol, you have in your system by blowing into this device. So it's a noun, breathalyzer. Breathalyzer, and basically it's a breath analyzer. Enforcement, we're talking about an implementation of rules, so a synonym would be imposition. Flexible, we're not talking about how our bones or something is very soft and bendable. We're saying that it is modifiable, adaptable, or variable. If something can be changed, easily changed, you can say that it is flexible, okay? What about tolerance? We talked about high, low tolerance. We're talking about responsiveness, even resistance. But when it comes to tolerance, it's basically the ability to break down alcohol. Now, our body responds differently to almost everything. Your body will respond differently to A, and my body will respond differently to A. So even if you and I had the same amount of alcohol, or let's say a type of poison or a drug or whatever, our bodies will react differently. So in that case, you can talk about tolerance. When you're talking about drinking well, or if your body breaks down alcohol easily and well, you would say you have a high tolerance. If you don't, you would say you have a low tolerance, which means your body has a difficult time breaking down alcohol. Okay, moving on to our first pattern, to come across or come upon. It means to find, discover, to meet somebody unexpectedly, by chance. Okay, here is a sample sentence. I came across a heavily intoxicated man getting behind the wheel. Now, get behind the wheel means to drive a car. Okay, why? Because you are sitting in the driver's seat behind the steering wheel. We don't call that a handle, we call it a steering wheel. So, get behind the wheel means to actually sit in the driver's seat to drive a car. I came across, by chance, I came upon a heavily intoxicated man, a man that was very, very drunk getting behind the wheel. So simply put, I could say, I came across a very drunk man driving, okay, or getting in his car to drive. That's a simple way of putting the sentence. Okay, moving on to call a service up or to call up a service. You're dialing a number, you're calling a service. So we were talking about services such as driver for hire services. That's a name, right? I called up a service. Why? To have me picked up in front of the bar. Okay? So you could say to your friend, if your friend asks you, hey, did you get home safely? You didn't drive, did you? You can say, no. I called up a service to have me picked up in front of that bar, in front of my house, in front of the restaurant. That's something you could say to your friend. Okay, and then moving on to our very final one, no excuse. Let's check out a sample sentence. There is no excuse for DUI, drunk driving, driving and drinking. Drinking and driving, sorry. There's no excuse. There is no acceptable explanation or reason for something. You can say there's no excuse for DUI. Driving under the influence of alcohol, that's DUI. There is no excuse for drunk driving. And finally, there is no excuse for drinking and driving. Okay, I'm sure you can make use of this sentence in many different ways. Okay, so practice some more on your own. Job well done.
Back when I was in college, there was always some kind of party or club or event to go to. Usually house parties were really popular, so wherever there was a house party, there was sure to be a lot of alcohol. Unfortunately, along with intoxication comes the ability to make really bad decisions, and drunk driving is usually one of them. For me and my friends, we always had a DD, a designated driver. This person would volunteer not to drink at all for the whole night and drive everybody home at the end of the night to make sure that we all get home safely. So we would usually take turns doing this. And the penalty for driving under the influence, DUI, or driving while intoxicated, DWI, it varies from place to place. Usually you can be heavily fined for it. You can have your driver's license suspended or even revoked, or you can even serve serious jail time.
Welcome back, everyone. That was Actual Story. Now, Alexis began by saying that along with intoxication comes the ability to make really bad decisions. We do make mistakes, make terrible decisions, and one of them happens to be drunk driving. Let's check out what else she's mentioned. She says, for me and my friends, we always had a DD, or a double D, which means a designated driver. Okay, she tells us what a designated driver is. Okay, moving on. This person, we're talking about a designated driver. This person would volunteer not to drink at all, not at all, not even a drop of alcohol for the whole night and drive everybody home. at the end of the night. Now, this is very common. You will see this very commonly, even in movies. So when a whole bunch of friends go out to drink, party, whatever, there's almost always one designated driver. One of the friends that say, okay, tonight I'm not going to drink, I'm going to drive every one of you home safely. So she's talking about a designated driver. The penalty. What happens? The penalty for driving under the influence, that's DUI, right? As you see right here. Or driving while intoxicated, DWI, varies. So the penalty for DUI and DWI is different. You can be heavily fined, which means you may have to pay a heavy fine, a lot of money for it. You can have your driver's license suspended, temporarily suspended, which means you can't drive for a given time, maybe a couple of months, or even revoked, meaning taken away, canceled. Or you can even serve serious jail time, which means in some cases you may even be thrown in jail. You may have to go to jail. So it's quite scary. Okay, thanks, Alexis. Let's take a listen to it one more time.
Back when I was in college, there was always some kind of party or club or event to go to. Usually house parties were really popular, so wherever there was a house party, there was sure to be a lot of alcohol. Unfortunately, along with intoxication comes the ability to make really bad decisions, and drunk driving is usually one of them. For me and my friends, we always had a DD, a designated driver. This person would volunteer not to drink at all for the whole night and drive everybody home at the end of the night to make sure that we all get home safely. So we would usually take turns doing this. And the penalty for driving under the influence, DUIs, or driving while intoxicated, DWI, it varies from place to place. Usually you can be heavily fined for it. You can have your driver's license suspended or even revoked, or you can even serve serious jail time.
Today we talked about drunk driving, everyone. Of course, we always say we learn from our mistakes, but drunk driving is a totally different story. You don't want to learn the hard way, do you? So do not make the mistake of thinking to yourself, hey, I can drive. I only had maybe a shot or two. I'm fine to drive. Always call up a service to have someone pick you up, or leave your car at home if you have any plans to maybe have a few drinks with your friends or with your coworkers. It's better to be safe than sorry, right? Okay, well, that was our topic for today. Next time, let's talk about vroom, speeding. When it comes to driving cars, some people love speed, some don't, but that is our topic for our next lesson, speeding once again. In the meantime, come to our homepage, everyone. Come on over to www.ebse.co.kr. Look for Actual English with Jennifer and share your thoughts. Post up your comments and questions. That is it for today, everyone. Thanks for joining me. Take care, and I'll see you again soon. Bye for now.